There's a fundamental misunderstanding most people have about communication. They think it begins when you open your mouth. It doesn't. Communication starts long before language enters the picture. It starts at the level of your nervous system, your emotional state, and the signals your body broadcasts without your awareness. And this is exactly where animals and babies live, completely tuned into that layer, completely dependent on it. When people ask why animals or infants stare at them, they're usually looking for something mystical. But the truth is more grounded and in many ways more powerful. What they're responding to is coherence. Your internal state, when it's aligned and calm, produces a kind of signal that doesn't need translation. There's no decoding required. It's immediate. It's instinctive. You have to understand, animals don't have the luxury of misunderstanding energy. For them, misreading a signal can mean danger. So over time, their perception has evolved to become incredibly precise. They are constantly scanning for tension, inconsistency, threat. Babies, in a different way, operate under a similar system. They haven't yet learned to override their instincts with social conditioning. They don't second guess what they feel. If something feels safe, they lean in. If it doesn't, they withdraw. It's that simple. So when an empath walks into a room, something different happens. Not because of some abstract label, but because of what that person is actually doing internally. Empaths tend to process emotional information more deeply. They're often more aware of their own internal state, even if it feels overwhelming at times. And when that awareness turns into regulation, when they're not fighting their emotions but understanding them, it creates a kind of stillness.
That stillness is what gets noticed. It's not about being nice or kind in the surface level sense. Animals don't care about your manners. Babies don't care about your social skills. They care about congruence. They care about whether what you feel matches what you show. And most people, if we're being honest, are out of sync. They smile when they're tense. They speak calmly when they're agitated. They say the right words, but their body tells a different story. That mismatch creates noise. And instinctively, animals and infants pick up on that noise as something uncertain. But when your internal state is clear, when you're not performing, not pretending, not masking, there's no noise. There's just signal. Clean, consistent, and easy to interpret. That's why you'll notice animals holding eye contact with certain people longer than usual. It's not curiosity in the way we think of it, it's assessment. And what they're finding is a lack of threat, a lack of contradiction. Babies do something similar, but with a different intention. When a baby stares, it's not analyzing, it's absorbing. They're taking in information about safety, about connection, about regulation. If your presence lowers their stress response even slightly, they'll lock onto you, because in their world, that matters more than anything else. This is where most people miss the deeper implication. It's not that empaths have some rare, unexplainable quality. It's that they're often closer to a state that humans were originally designed to operate from, a state where internal and external signals are aligned, where what you feel isn't hidden behind layers of strategy or defense. And that alignment changes how you
Perceived, even if no one can articulate why. There's also something else happening here, something more subtle. When your nervous system is regulated, it doesn't just affect you, it influences the environment around you. This is well documented in psychology, co-regulation. One stable system can help stabilize another. That's why a calm person can de-escalate tension in a room without saying a word. Now, imagine what that feels like to a being that relies entirely on that level of communication. To an animal, your presence either adds to their stress or reduces it. There's no middle ground. To a baby, your presence either feels safe or it doesn't. And when you consistently fall into that category of safety, when your energy isn't erratic, isn't unpredictable, you become something they're naturally drawn to. Not because you're trying to be, but because you're not trying at all. And that's the paradox.
The more someone tries to appear safe, calm, or kind, the more likely they are to create subtle inconsistencies. Effort introduces friction, but genuine regulation, real internal clarity, doesn't require effort in the same way. It's stable, it's quiet, and it's unmistakable to anything that's paying attention at that level. So when you notice animals watching you, or babies staring longer than expected, don't rush to label it as something extraordinary. See it for what it actually is: feedback. It's a reflection of
Awareness, through regulation, through alignment. Because in the end, the most powerful form of communication isn't what you say. It's what others feel in your presence, and whether or not their instincts trust it. If you take that idea a step further, that communication begins beneath words, then you start to see why authenticity isn't just a moral concept, it's a perceptual one. It determines how clearly others can read you. And this is where empaths tend to stand apart, not because they're trying to be transparent, but because they often don't have the same capacity to maintain emotional contradictions for long periods of time. Most people are trained, consciously or not, to present a version of themselves that fits the environment. That means adjusting tone, suppressing reactions, filtering thoughts, and sometimes completely masking what's actually happening internally. It's effective in a social sense, but it creates a split. There's an internal experience, and then there's the external display, and the two don't fully match. Now, other adults may not consciously notice that mismatch, but they feel it. It shows up as subtle distrust, hesitation, or a sense that something is off, even if they can't explain why. Animals and babies don't try to explain it at all. They just respond. An empath, by contrast, often operates transparency. What you feel tends to move more directly into how you present. There's less delay, less distortion. And that matters more than most people realize, because when a being that relies on instinct encounters you, it's not looking for perfection. It's looking for consistency. If your facial expression, body language, and internal state are aligned, the signal becomes easy to process. There's no ambiguity, no hidden variables, just clarity. Think about how unusual that is in everyday human interaction. People say one thing, feel another, and display something in between. Over time, we become skilled at navigating that complexity, but we also become desensitized to it. We accept a certain level of incongruence as normal. But instinct-driven perception doesn't adapt in that way. It doesn't lower its standards to match social behavior. It continues to look for alignment, because alignment equals predictability, and predictability equals safety. So when you show up without that internal conflict, when what you feel and what you express are in sync, it stands out immediately. Not in a dramatic way, but in a way that's unmistakable to anything paying attention at that level. This is why babies will sometimes lock their gaze onto a specific person in a room full of adults. It's not random. They're drawn to the clearest signal, the one that doesn't require effort to interpret, the one that feels stable. Animals respond in a similar way, but often with more caution. They observe first. They watch for changes, for inconsistencies, for any indication that what they're sensing might shift. And when it doesn't, when your presence remains steady, they relax into that space,